Hustling Sideways podcast live at Marquette University. We are here today at 707 Hub on campus. No, you're fine. You're good. You can keep clapping. If you want to do it the whole episode, you can do that too. I'm Allen Halas. I'm a music writer based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And I am Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker also based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we've been talking about this. We've been teasing this for quite a while. And we're here. We've made it. We're really excited. So I'm really proud to say that this is the Hustling Sideways podcast sponsored by the 707 Hub at Marquette University. Use the S word. It's sideways. I don't know what you call that. No, sponsored. It's the S word. It's wonderful. We're really happy to be here. This space, led by Mr. Patrick Monahan, is a wonderful space for students to come to, alumni to come to, Exhibit A, B, and C, to really dive into what entrepreneurship is, to get stuff done, to share ideas. I call it entrepreneurship. I made it up on drive here, and it went over well. It's just like I thought it was going to go over well. But Alan and I knew that it would be a really natural fit to have people who are passionate about something beyond 9 to 5 to come here and to do a show and to do a couple of them. So if you're listening, welcome. If you're not listening, you won't hear this anyway, so I guess that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, welcome to you too, even though you're not here. But we've been live since January 2021. This all sort of started as a text from Alan and I saying, like, maybe we should meet up, have a beer, which is how all good things start, frankly. And let's talk about people who have passion. It started in Milwaukee. It extended kind of to a global show now, which is awesome, and it's back to its roots in Milwaukee. So all three Marquette alums up here. We have amazing guests that we'll get to here in a second, but we just want to acknowledge that we're really excited to be here. We've been talking about it for a while, like I said, and the 707 Hub is a wonderful space, and we're really thrilled. We really wish we had this as students, frankly. I think it's one thing we could say, but Alan, I'll give the mic back over to you if you want to add anything. I've been hogging it.
Well, the main thing that I just wanted to say too for you guys too, so that you kind of understand the premise of this too, is we both have 9 to 5 jobs. This is about having a side hustle, having a project that you are passionate about, having your own company, things that you do outside of that 9 to 5 that you kind of want to turn into a full-time thing, as in my case. And Jim is a motivational speaker. He does this on the side too, gets to go out. So there's a little bit of balancing this, and then it's also just entrepreneurship in general, like starting a business. Neither one of us have a formal entrepreneurship background. We're both communications majors, both class 2013 from Marquette.
Woo!
But we both learn how to, learn the hard way, kind of how to run a business and keep your 9 to 5 job and not get fired. So,
well, pending, but yeah.
Pending, yes, of course, always pending. But we have a great guest today too. We talked to a lot of people that have side hustles, passion projects, things like that. A serial entrepreneur, I think, is the best way to describe it. Jeff Sherman. Who you've been in and around Milwaukee as a figure for decades now? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I grew up in beautiful tree-lined Wauwatosa, about 14 miles from here. And yeah, I'm a lifelong, passionate, civically engaged Milwaukeean.
Nice. The main project that a lot of people know you from is OnMilwaukee, but I know that there's lots of other things. Do you want to talk about just the many different businesses that you are involved in at the moment?
Sure, yeah, I can kind of give you the background, maybe a little bit of career arc, and we can stop and you can ask questions, and I can go wherever we want to go here.
Sure.
But I guess I've always had this Milwaukee chip on my shoulder, and I think that's a good thing, like kind of an umbrella as you're talking about entrepreneurship. If you have this thing, either a chip on your shoulder or a pain in your heart, you got to go for it, and you got to figure out a way to get it out of your body and find a way and find a solution that's bigger than you to solve that. And for me, seriously, it was always this, like, my hometown didn't get the credence it deserved for whatever reason. Like, we're in the Midwest, maybe we're a little too German and laid back, and we're not, we don't want to blow and brag and say, hey, we're great, like they did in the Windy City way back when in Chicago. We just didn't do that in Milwaukee. So for whatever reason, through the years, and I'm a 1991 grad at Marquette, so it's been a few years since I've been on campus, but I'm on campus all the time now. for various things, but I always thought that Milwaukee just didn't get its due. So when I graduated from business school, marketing and finance. I had a great opportunity to intern in the athletic department here, which led to internship at the Milwaukee Bucks. So I wanted to kind of anchor my kind of love of sports with my civic pride, and Marquette allowed me to do that in many ways. Again, a tip for students, totally, there's so many opportunities on campus to dive in and get connected and take each and every one of them, because you never know where they're going to go. The Milwaukee Bucks opportunity to intern at an NBA team when you're 18, 19 years old was amazing. Not only for the people you got to meet, but just to see the game up close and personal, to meet ownership, and just to get plugged in that way.
For sure.
So the sports itch was definitely something I wanted to do out of school. Getting into that profession right away was a little harder than I thought it would be. I wrote a lot of letters, got a lot of wonderful letterhead back, got absolutely nothing. Actually, my 2 job offers out of school, I can tell you this, one was to manage a sporting goods store in South Bend, Indiana. And I'm like, I'm a Marquette guy, I'm not going to Notre Dame. And then ticket sales job for the Brewers, and I was a passionate Brewers fan growing up, but I wanted to do a little bit more with a finance and marketing degree.
Sure.
So I had a friend who was working in county government at the Milwaukee County Executive's office, and he's like, hey, there's a role here, it's probably not exactly what you're looking for, but trust me, you're gonna meet a ton of people. So my first job was county government, and to learn how things work, how things don't work, how to connect, how to contribute, how to kind of be a peon in an office that's always buzzing and always obviously very political, was an amazing first job out of school.
Sure.
And also we had a squad car, which was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I also very quickly want to backtrack.
Yes.
You had to be passionate about the Bucks if you were an intern in the early '90s, because they were not great.
We didn't win a ton of games, but at the same time, Jordan was still playing for the Bulls. So the beating man, I know, we probably have Bulls on the stage here.
He's from Chicago, so we won't
I'm a big
slander.
poser, is what he's trying to
I
say.
say we won't slander the Windy City.
You can slander, but just Jordan deserves it.
But to see that up close and personal was just truly amazing, like kind of pre-social media too, just to see the Jordan entourage and like the aura of a person of that magnitude and caliber athletically. It's like, obviously there's wonderful players on every league right now, but Jordan was in a league that was so different. And to be an intern in there, it was mesmerizing.
Sure. One thing I always ask people, and Jim knows this, and if you've listened to the show, you know this, I always ask people when they get the bug that they think, I need to start my own thing. And for a lot of people, it's very early in life. I don't know if, what was your first thing that you kind of really felt like, I need to create my own, I don't even want to say business, just your own project.
Yeah, I think I always had this we over me mentality, and I guess I give that a little bit to my parents, not a little bit, but probably a lot to my parents. My dad worked for Goodwill Industries most of his career, so helped open their retail stores, and he's been retired maybe 15 years or so now, but he always just had a greater good about him, and my mom was a nurse. So they had that mentality instilled within us that, hey, if there's something you love, make sure you're doing it for a greater good. And again, being able to marry that with kind of the civic pride that I just kind of had, we knew we had to do it. So I had a path for sure, and I had a plan. Like after the county exec's office, you're working for a politician, he decides not to run again. So you're all out of a job. So I'm out of a job, year one. But I had met an individual who was running a company called the Wisconsin Sports Authority, which was a public, private, nonprofit that helped attract and retain sporting events in the state of Wisconsin. And we ran the Wisconsin Sports Hall of Fame, and also just a wonderful board and just really good opportunities to put on large-scale events. We invite Bob Costas to host a big event in the late 90s downtown Milwaukee, and just figuring out all those pieces in a 2-person office was just an amazing experience, for sure.
Now, I want to ask about, because you're on X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it these days, but a phrase that you use that I love is onward.
Yeah.
Tell me about because I know that's a theme that you have. It's Milwaukee. What is onward to you?
Yeah, onward to me is about taking. It's just always knowing that failure is going to come, and that you're going to have bumps in the road no matter what happens in your life, whether it's personal or professional, and knowing that you got to get past it in some way, shape, or form. And again, it kind of comes back to Milwaukee too. Milwaukee being a smaller community, I think things get magnified here a little bit more than a larger community, whether they're good or bad. Sometimes we cheer good things a little too much, sometimes bad stuff happens, and we amplify it too much. So we got to just figure out a way to get onward and upward past it all, knowing that we have this calling in our lives to be bigger than we are. And so that, to me, is what it's all about. And I gotta do, I think probably like we all have to do, we have to put that in our heads each and every day to make sure that we remember that and connect to that, because or else you start thinking about yourself too much and you're like, whoa. And that's when it gets really hard. And we look back at, when we started on OnMilwaukee.com, there wasn't I don't think any radio station or newspaper had a website in the market in 1998.
Yeah.
So when you incubate an idea, my business partner, we met for breakfast. He's like, hey, I got a business plan for, I want to package and promote and position all the stuff that's happening in Milwaukee. We're going to put it on a website. We're going to grow it into a media company. I'm like, dude, that's what's in my soul. Like, I want to be a part of this. Let's go.
Right.
Everyone we talk to, they're like, you can't do that. There's a radio station here, there's a newspaper here, there's this and that and that. That's what you gotta tell yourself onward, because if you don't, you just get scared and retreat.
Sure. I just realized that OnMilwaukee is probably older than most of the people in this room. And there was a time when the internet was very, very simple. And so what was navigating, like you said, Milwaukee at that time, navigating the media landscape, because the paper was, the Journal Sentinel was basically the main thing,
right.
or Shepherd Express, or that's about it, as far as being a guide to the city or anything like that. How did you approach thinking web first, internet first, as opposed to, because there's never been really a print version of OnMilwaukee?
No, we tried a couple things, like with some key sponsors and just as a promotional vehicle, really, but yeah, there was never any print product. Yeah, it was really just knowing who we were, and knowing that the mantra in the office was always make great media, move Milwaukee forward, and a city is only as good as the stories it tells, and we're going to do that digitally. We're going to do that first. We're going to hire people with the same like mind, and we're going to go out and find the really good stories, and we're not going to let people tell us that they don't matter.
Sure.
Because we had, there was a responsibility there. And I think that's what drove it all.
Yeah. Sorry.
Give me the damn mic.
I have to ask though, so media companies make their money off of sponsorship, advertising. What were advertisers' first thoughts when you were looking at, hey, this is gonna just be online, and did you have to convince them that, no, the internet is still gonna be the future, that you don't need to take out a quarter-page ad somewhere else?
Yeah, there was a lot of, we had to build community early, we had to build our credibility early. I will say one of the first things we did was meet with the Chamber of Commerce, the MMAC here, the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce, and we started a young professionals group. Selfishly, we wanted readers, right? We wanted people to use the site, but strategically, we wanted to build community of like-minded professionals who companies could then use. We call it YPM, it was Young Professionals of Milwaukee. It still exists now, it's called Fuel Milwaukee. So definitely connect with Fuel Milwaukee, they're doing great things. But we were like, hey, we're starting a movement, but we need to do it with the business community. This can't just be an OnMilwaukee thing, like this needs to be a greater good thing.
Yeah.
And I was the first president of that group, and just had a whole lot of fun, like connecting groups that otherwise didn't really connect. Does that make sense? Like, you know, you're at Manpower,
Right.
and you know, sometimes like the HR people don't talk to the lawyers. And we were like strategic about doing meetings around like-minded individuals, but different career tracked people. And knowing that the companies needed to recruit and retain, so having a young professionals group that could selfishly help us get eyeballs at OnMilwaukee, but also be about population development in a community, that it was beautiful.
I think that's awesome. And I know, you know, and probably through a lot of those conversations, people talked about Milwaukee, talked about this city. And I know that you engage in discussions with people both who are from here, people who are from, you know, different spots. What is the thing that you hear that maybe drives you the most nuts when people talk about Milwaukee? Like, what's that one, like, oh, like that's so false? Or where do you really find yourself protecting Milwaukee at times?
Yeah, I have a presentation that I use. It's called Milwaukee Principles the World Needs Now. And the first one is, I should ask you this. I'll ask you that. I always ask people to define Milwaukee in 3 words. And for me, it's lack of pretense. Because whatever you say about a community, it's usually, well, we have a ton of events, we have great Fortune 500 companies, and we have a lake, and we have this. Like, all communities are pretty similar when you get to it. But I think there is just this wonderful lack of pretense in this community. And maybe it goes back to our German heritage and our beer culture and our brewing culture, but there's a realness and authenticity here that you have to experience to really, really grasp it. So that lack of pretense is something that I think is just so true to who we are here. You know, what I don't get upset with like the beer and cheese mantra. I really don't. I think it's something we need to continue to lean into. But I think beer and cheese is a side dish to what's happening in Milwaukee.
I love that. Now I really want a side dish.
There we go. That's right. Yeah, let's go get
This would be a perfect time to have a spotted cow and mac and cheese here.
And to really,
Next episode, yeah.
Taking notes.
And to anchor it all in entrepreneurialism, you look back at like the Schlitz family, the Miller family, the kind of the legacy brewing families. They created the beer garden, right? And why did they create the beer garden? Well, they wanted to sell product, but they wanted to do it with their friends and their family in an environment that was authentic, real, and just fun. And now you fast forward, you know, hundreds of years later, the beer gardens are, I don't want to say they're saving many businesses, but they really are. They are community gathering spots. It's not necessarily even about drinking beer. It's about community, it's about family, it's about commerce, it's about content. All the stuff we talk about in media each and every day, you can almost go back to the beer garden and say that's where it started.
Sure. I'm interested because you built your community through YPN while building your website and while building the company. Was that kind of simultaneous that you thought, okay, I have a brand and we need an audience, let's just make something for the audience? Or was it, this is what the brand is going to be, how do we get people, what if we do this? Like what, it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing, I guess, but did they grow simultaneously? Because I think every brand obviously needs to have their own community, needs to have their passionate followers too.
Yeah, I think they work hand in hand because the access and the collaboration with the business groups led to strategic advertising opportunities and partnership opportunities. So we created best of lists, we created voting opportunities for the public. Hey, what's your favorite bar? What's your favorite restaurant? We came up with a list concept, but, you know, before people were really doing lists on the large scale BuzzFeed kind of thing. You know, we did 100 things to do in Milwaukee. And we did 100 more things to do in Milwaukee. Then we did 100 things you forgot about Milwaukee. And we just kind of went in on that, almost to this, it kind of annoyed us, but we're like, whoa, people love this, let's keep doing it.
Yeah, it worked, exactly. For you, diving into that company, was that a full jump, or were you managing, or you know, having a 9 to 5, let's say, and trying to get that launched at the same time?
Yeah, in between my Wisconsin Sports Authority and OnMilwaukee, there were probably 7, 8 years. I worked at a public relations and lobbying firm, and we had the Brewers as a client. We had Visit Milwaukee, which was the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So I had a lot of like civic clients that I got to work on that helped kind of pave the road, if you will, to OnMilwaukee. But I definitely had to make that decision to leave a full-time agency job and dive in at OnMilwaukee, and that's what my two business partners did as well. But I remember I was sitting at a Brewers game with my dad, and I'm like, I've been at the agency I was at for about 5 years. We had the Brewers as a client. We were working on what is now AmFam Field. We worked on all the sponsorship and the taxation to get that stadium created, which was amazing to be a part of.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of going through all this with my dad, and I'm like, this is kind of going to be a fun opportunity, but I'm not going to have health care. I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to have that.
Right.
And he's like, Jeff, seriously, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm like, Dad said it's all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
As
soon as you have that supportive, that one initial push that tells you go, then you're kind of in on it, kind of thing.
Without a doubt, yeah. And it took several years for us to, even raise the investment we needed to really power our growth. So we were truly bootstrapping it the first couple of years, and but knowing that family and communities behind you made, at least for me, made it a whole lot easier.
Sure. I think one thing that we kind of talk about on this podcast too a lot is personal brand, and I think the personal brand of Jeff Sherman is to be a cheerleader for Milwaukee, especially when there's a lot of people, especially like online, that it's very easy to be negative about the city. Or we're not this, we're not that, we're whatever. What is the biggest challenge that you face about being overly positive about Milwaukee? And you don't have to name names, but what is the thing, maybe let's say online, that has come at you the most that you've had to dodge or deflect?
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of in me. I had Joe Sweeney, my boss at Wisconsin Sports Authority, has written 4 or 5 books on networking and culture, positivity, and human connection. And every morning I would go in, and he'd be like, "Sure, it's a great day. Define enthusiasm." And I'm like, "Dude, chill out, man. It's 7 o'clock. Yeah. And Joe would always tell me, he's like, "Jeff, enthusiasm isn't what people think it is. It is, look at the definition of the word. It is in theos. That is the Greek meaning of the word. It is God within. And if you have something within you that is calling you to do something, whether that's cheering for your community or your team or seeking the ultimate, that your son or daughter gets into the school that they want to, whatever that is, if you don't let it out of you, you're not doing yourself a disservice, you're doing the world a disservice. And Joe just hammered this into me each and every day, and I'm like, wow, the guy's he's a boss, and he's kind of yelling at me, and we go to networking events, and if I didn't introduce myself to somebody, he would yell at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" He was just one of those type of bosses that kind of showed me, hey, you have to be positive, you have to be upbeat, you have to believe in yourself, and those oftentimes you're going to get cut down because of that, but that's okay, right? And you just got to power through it, and you just got to go onward.
I think that's such a critical point, and particularly folks who are debating doing something beyond their 9 to 5 or just have a passion. You're going to have those people that are going to cut it down. I deal with it all the time. How many times have I told you I get called toxic negative, or toxic positivity, right? I think that's a made-up word, and I have thoughts about that. But and that's people that want to bring you down. And it's I'm not going to apologize for having a different outlook on life. And I love the example, because I think we all have someone to look up to that really showed us that path. And you have that. I'm sure people are. You are that for people. I'm sure people in this crowd have the same type of thing. And just how critical has that been for your growth? And because I'm thinking you can think back right away to that boss and what he taught you. And do you go back that often? Because I actually, and to preface this, I think about Father Ness here at Marquette, and I know some of the folks in the audience probably don't know who that is, but longtime Jesuit here, passed away 10 years ago, like this week, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually bring him up in every keynote I give. It's his quotes hanging up on my living room wall, and really was critical. And I used to think back and be sad because obviously he's not here anymore. But now I look back in gratitude. I'm like, this guy taught me everything. Like, so that's so critical. Just speak about the importance of having that in your life and how you can turn back to it a lot of times.
Yeah. So coming from Wauwatosa to Marquette, my roommate was one of my best friends still to this day. And our parents made us take Evelyn Wood's speed reading class as a freshman here. I'm like, come on, I'm a freshman, I got all these courses, everything's new, and they're like, no, you're gonna take speed reading. I'm like, I don't need to know how to speed read, come on, like who's gonna be able to teach me how to speed read? You know who the teacher was? Father Nelms.
Really?
So, we get to the speed reading class, there's not a whole lot of people signed up, because really,
Speed reading.
it's speed
It's
reading.
speed reading.
But they taught us how to, Father Nelms taught us how to read and interpret and kind of look within yourself when you're analyzing material, and it was amazing. And after every class, we went to Burger King. And Father Nelms would just talk life, and we would just sit back and take it all in. So, like, having someone like a priest or a pastor, or obviously a Father Nelms, is so important. And you're gonna have that with bosses and people that just stand out in life. I just texted my first boss in the county executive's office, her birthday's today. We went back and forth, we're still connected. So,
Sure.
you know, having that power of connection and really building it and being conscious about doing it. Again, Joe Sweeney, he would, every day I would get in, he would put together a list for me. I had to meet 5 new people, connect with 10 people, and then make 50 other connections somehow. And if I didn't do it, he'd yell at me, but then he'd still praise me. Hey, you had a good chance. And then I had to write all of his letters. So like here, he'd give me his business cards. He'd be like, sure, here's the people I met. Can you write him a quick note and say, hey, great to meet you. If I can ever help you, call me. Love, Joe. And I'm like, wow, that's what Joe's doing. Like, that's what you got to do to succeed. So again, you know what you said, Jim, having those type of people in your life that help you understand what it takes is so incredibly important.
I think immediately about college me that runs out of every networking thing, or like, I was like the awkward guy in the corner that was like, what?
Hold on, you say was. Alan said was. Okay, yeah.
I say college me, for sure, would not have been
Things
even
have
up to-
changed.
Yeah, they happen. But networking was not a thought for me in college. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of assumed, I don't know, maybe it was very naively, but I was just like, I will meet people along the way kind of thing. What would Jeff Sherman now tell college Jeff Sherman if you had to pick one piece of advice that, you know, maybe a current college student could pull away from, especially if it's, you know, I guess entrepreneurship related, but it could be anything, any life thing.
Yeah, I would definitely know that life is going to work itself out the way it's meant to. And that sounds a little Pollyanna-ish. Like sometimes when you say that, oh, whatever, that means you're not going to work hard, you don't know the process, you don't know how to dive in and make it happen. But truly, it does all the time. And as long as you have the right process and people and attitude behind you, it is going to work out. But it may not work out exactly how you meant to, or exactly what your college mind thought it would, but you're getting to where you're supposed to be. And I think that's exactly it. And that's what my dad would tell me. That's my, Father Joe, who confirmed me, would tell me. And he, I say Father Joe. He gave a great homily the other day. He talked about his pastoral life and how every time he would push for another opportunity within the church, it never happened. Or it never happened the way he thought it would. But then he ended up getting on this other committee where he learned even more. So like that type of notion, I think is really important to learn early, that sometimes things are happening for a reason. You might not know that reason right away, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, of saying, I know we've talked about positive leaders that you've had, right? There's also probably some negative ones. And actually, if I think back on my career, 10 years now, my first boss was horrible. and he's actually part of my leadership development, because I learned what not to do. And it was a really critical, I mean, you just named it, he did it all, that way, and for namesake, let's call him Ryan, that was his name. So,
I was gonna say, that's real, you're just telling me,
that's correct,
that's
yeah.
actual.
But like, I took away, I really needed that experience, and I was miserable at the time, it was probably 4 or 5 months doing this job, but I look back and I knew how much I learned from that, what I knew I didn't want to do, how I didn't want to treat people, and I would say that propelled me more than any like, I guess really good bosses have done the same thing, but that really bad leader has really helped me. Have you had anyone like that who's kind of like you've taken away what not to do from them?
Yeah, I mean, I've had coaches and colleagues for sure that have provided wonderful, amazing feedback on the spot, or whether it's in reviews or through a process, all the time. I mean, I don't want to go back to 8th grade, but my 8th grade basketball coach was horrible. Like, he was just so incredibly hard on us. But I look back on it, like, we won the championship, and I made some amazing friends, and, I learned the power of sports in the world. And I hope today that a little bit of that's rubbing off on our 15-year-old and our 10-year-old, right? So I think coaches are great, but I've had some kind of sales managers and people that I've worked with that have been really hard on feedback, but you always got to know that, hey, they're not coming at you personally, they're coming at you because we need to continue to strategically grow and develop, and as long as you have that collaborative mindset in those meetings, you're going to be all right.
Sure. Let's briefly talk about some of the projects that you have going on now. What are some of the things that you're most excited about? I know you were involved with the HOP for a while. Is there a HOP cast?
Yeah. Milwaukee Streetcar is a project I've worked on for 20 plus years in some way, shape, or form. Coming up on 5 years in the system. And when I was leaving OnMilwaukee, there's an agency in town called Two Story that has the contract for the streetcars, and we do all the sponsorship.
Sure.
And also started a podcast on board the streetcar, which is really fun. So selfishly, it's a great way to get people to experience the heart of the city.
Yeah.
On board a live moving streetcar. So there's some challenges, you got to keep your balance. So we do that regularly.
We're not coming on that one. We're gonna fall.
You guys are on my list. No,
one
you're
of the
not.
clumsiest.
I'm coming, but I will fall.
I met my wonderful wife Stephanie through the Westtown Association, which is the area just east of Marquette's campus. When she was the director of the Westtown Association, we've been involved in that organization for years. I'm the board president of that, and we own and operate the Milwaukee Night Market, which happens 4 times a year,
Nice.
closing down Wisconsin Avenue. It's just become a huge, wonderful, amazing event with 20-30,000 people in the heart of the state. So that's a project I'm really passionate about. And we have a technology company called Okanjo that I started, was an investor in while it's still at OnMilwaukee, that is a branded content and affiliate marketing company that we work with publishers across the country on.
Yeah.
So it's another truly entrepreneurial venture, but kind of a larger scale than what we were doing at OnMilwaukee. So it's a lot of fun.
How do you manage your time? How do you manage to schedule all of that out and make that work?
I try to go on a lot of runs so I can just think and forget about it.
It's a good way to do it. Just forget about it.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest thing is I have a really good routine in the morning. I read from the same books. I do the same exercises. I do the same breathing, and that sets my mind right in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go about what I need to. And I think having that routine has been, at least for me, I've really needed it. It's like stretching and exercises and reading from the same books. So that's really important to me.
For sure. So everything like we said, everything you've done has been very positive about Milwaukee. I think as we kind of wind things down here, what is the ideal Milwaukee to you? Like going forward in the future, what is your vision for the city of Milwaukee? Where would you like to see that kind of go? I should have gave you that one ahead of time, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I love Mayor Johnson's vision to get to 1 million people, because it is truly aspirational, and I think more people brings more opportunities and more challenges, which every city kind of needs. So I think continuing to grow the population base, I think continuing to grow the connections to neighborhoods is truly important. Milwaukee's a college town, it really is. And you look at the density of college kids at all the colleges and universities, and the youth in our community are so connected, but we gotta make sure they're connected to all areas, and that includes the suburbs and all the neighborhoods. So building those developments, finding ways to place, make, and connect, which I think Marquette does exceptionally well. And the Iron District is a huge opportunity to kind of connect the south side of downtown with the central part of downtown to the Deer District. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a long-winded answer. I could kind of talk forever on it, but it's also like continuing to build community and connections among faith-based institutions, I think, is incredibly strong too. I mean, Milwaukee's a city that has a bar and a church on every corner, right? But that also kind of means that on Sundays, people are kind of in their own quadrants,
One or
right?
the other.
One or the other. You're going there for similar reasons sometimes, but that's
Or one
okay.
before the other, I
Right.
suppose, yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities to build further connections in the faith-based communities in Milwaukee for our greater good, because that's, again, something I think we do really well here, is kind of look to what's a bigger, higher calling. And I think we all do it in maybe little different ways, but Milwaukee just celebrates and we fest everything. And as long as we can fest everything and keep it anchored in what matters, we're gonna be all right.
Love that, and we brunch very, very hard.
Yes.
I would say
Yes.
Milwaukee is a hard brunch place, and I love that. Well, I want to say, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do want to acknowledge we have some folks here, which is wonderful, and we are happy to have a Q&A if you guys would like to. If anybody has any questions of Jeff, we're happy to do so. And I'll give you the mic. Here you
I
go.
would say, in the meantime, where can they find you online? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, X, whatever it is now,
Twitter,
at Sherman Jeff.
Okay.
That's the best place to find me.
Yes.
There you go. And you can find this podcast as well. We are Hustling Sideways wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Facebook, we're on X, we're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We do have a Threads, but I've been slacking.
I've never seen that, but yeah.
Yes, it's an Instagram thing. Don't worry about it. You'll learn.
It's coming slowly but surely, but I don't know.
It's getting there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're all over the social media as well. So thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank
We'll
you.
get on the question Q&A after this, but thank you so much for watching, listening, however you're checking us out, and Jim.
Keep on hustling. See you next time. Should I drop the mic?
You should be patient.